All right, all right. Sure. What'd you say, Chris? Shalom, shalom, family, shalom. Shabbat, shalom. I hope everybody's having a great Shabbat day. Hope it was filled with learning, filled with Torah, filled with the Ruach. Um, just grateful to be able to come before you with a message and this particular message. This particular message is for those that may feel like you're going through some setbacks, feel like you may be struggling, feel like you may be going through some turmoil or through trial. This message is for you today. All right. So, and we all can relate to having that feeling. Right. So this is a message just talking about how we can continuously overcome pitfalls, overcome stumbling, overcome the enemy, and just overcome just ourselves and our just evil inclination, right? So this message is for you. All right. So today's message is called Staying Faithful Through Setbacks, right? Staying faithful through setbacks, right? So in life, we all fall, we all stumble, we slip, make bad decisions, go through tragedy. We may also deal with complacency, being inconsistent, you know, mental struggles, leaning towards the evil inclination. These are things that we deal with, we struggle with. So we're going to go through the importance of staying faithful while going through setbacks, right? And we think about setbacks. I know a lot of times these are some things that we usually think about, right? When we talk about setbacks, right? Why are setbacks so important? Right. So we're gonna go through why setbacks are so important. Why does Yah test us? Right. These are things that we say all the time. Why does Yah test me? Why I feel like I'm going through so much? Before I came to this way, life seemed to be real comfortable, real easy, lackadaisical, right? But now I come on this side, I just feel like I'm getting hit left and right. Why is walking upright seemingly harder than doing what's wrong? Right? These are things that usually come to our mind when we go through things, right? These are things that go to our mind when we go through things. So, these are just different questions that usually pop up when we go through setbacks, when we go through hard times and hardship, right? Well, the reason why Yah tests us, the reason why it seems so hard to walk upright, well, because honestly, you're not going to do God's will on your own. You're just not. You're not going to fulfill your purpose by just walking on your own or walking without any trial or any test. If we had our choice, we would go along life doing what we want to do, self preserving, living purposeless, unproductive lives if we had it our way, right? If we had it our way. So, one thing you have to understand about setbacks is that in order to do Yah's will and to keep a high level of focus and direction, it's necessary for Yah to tug on us. That way, we learn to get beside ourselves and live for something higher, right? So, there's a purpose in trial. There's a purpose in setback. There's a purpose when we stumble at times. There is purpose for that, right? There is purpose, right? And a lot of times because Yah is trying to tug, that way we get beside ourselves and live for something much higher. Okay. So when we think about that, right? When we think about that, you know, there is a big world out there. And there's a concept called tikkun olam, right? The repairing of the world. And in order to repair the world, we have to be doing Yah's will on a daily basis. We have to be where we need to be at, saying what we need to be saying, doing what we need to be doing on a daily basis, doing Yah's will. And so, since there's a big world out there, Yah is counting on us to do our part in the world. He's counting on us to be a part of repairing the world. And every day we fail to do Yah's will is another day the world is not repaired. I'll say that again. Every day we fail to do Yah's will is another day the world is not repaired. Okay? So we're going to look into some concepts on being faithful through setbacks. Why is that so important, and why is it necessary to go through setbacks in order to be spiritually elevated? So we're going to look at something like that. We're going to look into some things. So look at the concept. This is called Yarida Lezarek Aliyah. Okay, this is a concept within Judaism, Yarida Lezarek Aliyah, and that means descent for the purpose of ascent. Right. So this is a concept within Judaism. It's really like a Hasidic. It's really a Hasidic concept that started long ago. That talks about the importance of descending in order to ascend, right? So if you want to write that down, Yarida Lezorek Aliyah. All right. So this is a Hasidic concept that is applied to an individual who experiences failure and enable them to overcome their negative experience. Okay. All right. So let me share my screen. I'm going to click on this article. All right. So let me share. All right. All right. All right. Here we go. So let me share. Go ahead and click on this article real quick. All right. So I thought this article was good. So this is the Jerusalem Post, and they did an article on this very concept, right? This very concept, this Yerida Lezorek Aliyah, right? The descent for the purpose of ascent. So this article says, what goes down must come up. A physical descent can sometimes mask the tremendous energy and power encased in a person's soul. So let's read. I'm gonna go down and start reading. In Torah, we have a concept called Yarida Lezarek Aliyah, which I translate here as what goes down must come up. According to the spiritual design of the universe, every descent is only for the purpose of an ascent. There are many physical expressions of this concept, as with basketball players, or as with a basketball player heading for a slam dunk. First, he bends his knees super low, and that enables him the momentum to leap back up even higher. Your infinitely powerful and all knowing soul, compressing down into your dense physical body with all its limitations, is considered the prime example of this, right? So, prime example of us descending in order to ascend is that we go from spiritual, then we go into our mother's womb and we're birthed out physical as a baby, not knowing anything, having to then learn about our spiritual essence again, and then hopefully when our time expires, we ascend and we transfigure into something even greater than when we began, right? So our soul descending into a body is the prime example of this concept, right? So what your soul can accomplish with this descent into a body is astronomically higher than where it could get otherwise. Your expansive soul has come into the specific form and makeup of you, your character and life circumstances, in order to experience your particular array of challenges, so that you would rise up and birth your greatest self through them. Everything you encounter in your life is catered exactly to what your soul has come here to know and create itself through, right? So every encounter we have in life is something that our soul needs in order to elevate to where it needs to go. To go down deep, or to go deep down into those dark and shadowy places of the mind, body, and heart, sometimes for prolonged and arduous periods, and then to shine your enlightened self into them, transforming the curses to blessings. This part here, I thought this was profound. In Hebrew, Egypt is known as Mitzrayim, which has its root the word Mitzar, which means a narrow strait. A narrow strait. I thought that was very powerful. Let's keep reading. Like the compression of a spring, when we get pushed into tight places, the tension builds and triggers us to take action. Let me say that again. So when we talk about narrow straits and narrow places, that narrowness is so much tension and there's so much focus we have to there's so much we have to focus on in order to be able to walk on narrow straits or narrow roads, right? But that narrowness and that tension causes us to take action. And when all that tension is released, it propels us forward to greater heights, right? People come up with the most brilliant innovations when under pressure to produce. Discomfort catalyzes change. When the soul, your consciousness, encounters constriction of any sort, struggle, adversity, pain, it becomes alerted to what is pushing for expansion, to what part of you is ready to be birthed from that narrow strait. This reminds me of a concept in the Brit Hadashah, and I'm gonna go there. Let's go to Matthew 7 and verse 13. So Matthew 7, let's see what our Messiah said about a very similar concept. So this is a concept in Judaism. And so when Yeshua says what he says in this passage right here, this is not nothing new. It's not nothing new. So Matthew 7 and 13, it says, enter through the narrow gate. Enter through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is spacious that leads to destruction, i.e., comfort, i.e., complacency, laziness, idleness. That leads to destruction. And there are many who enter through it, but the gate is narrow and the way is difficult that leads to life, right? So a narrow straight, it's uncomfortable. Most people don't like to live uncomfortably. So that's why most people don't reach their potential. Because in order to elevate, in order to transcend, you have to be willing to walk on a narrow straight and take action when discomfort comes. Be able to change whenever you feel discomfort. A lot of times, what we do is when we feel discomfort, we don't run through it. We don't run through the straight. We run back from the straight, from the narrow straight, and we quit or tap out because it's too difficult, right? But in order to spiritually transcend, we have to be able to walk through the narrow straight, walk through the narrow gate, walk through the narrow path, because that's what's going to lead us to life. Being able to persevere through setbacks is what leads us to life, right? Otherwise, we're living in death. So let me go back to my slide. All right, so let me unshare my screen. All right, and go back. All right, here we go. All right, so let me see. Present my. Oh, thank you. All right, so once again, this concept is a concept that shows that in order to ascend, we have to first descend. We have to first go through some things, because going through things helps us to grow, helps us to have a testimony for somebody else. It helps us to understand a bigger picture. And a lot of times, in order to grow, you have to experience. They say a lot of times experience is the greatest teacher, right? So going through life, going through this journey, right? You're going to go through some ups and downs, but through those ups and downs, it should help you ascend even higher, all right? So let me go to the next slide. So next slide, we're going to go through some more concepts of this Yarida Lezarek Aliyah, all right? And so here on the screen, this is a blog post. Devora or Shir Devora. This is a blog that this person has, and I thought this was good on this topic of Yerida Lizarek Aliyah. And this is what this person has to say about this. And she got this from Nachmanides, or which is the same as what we call Rambam. This is some commentary from Rambam. Okay. And so let me see if I can. Oops. Sorry. Go back. So let me pull this up. Some of the stuff is kind of in the way, but it's all right. Pull it up. Pull it up. All right. Here we go. Let's see if I got it. All right, here we go. All right, so it says Ness. So we see the top word says Ness, miracle. Next word says Nesayon, trial. So it says right here, this is Masilas Yasharim, path of the just, Rabbi Moshe Chaim. All right, and this is what he says. It says, all the affairs of the world, whether for the good or for the bad, are trials for a man. Let's keep reading. It says, when a person is destined to reach a level which is much higher than his present rung, it is necessary for him to undergo a descent first. I'm going to say it again. And when a person is destined to reach a level which is much higher than his present rung, it is necessary for him to undergo a descent first. Um, it says, before a person experiences a miracle, ness, he is given a trial, nesayon. There is no ascent without a prior descent. There is no ascent without a prior descent. The lower the descent, the higher the potential ascent. Let's say it again. The lower the descent, the higher the potential ascent. Right? God tries the righteous for knowing that the righteous will do his will. Let me say it again. So when God tries you or tests you, that means you're on the right path. That's crazy. That's crazy to believe, ain't it? A lot of times we think, shoot, most High must hate me. Why the heck am I going through A, B, and C? Well, the reason why you're being tried is because he knows you have the capability, you have the capacity, you have the potential to do his will. He desires to make them even more upright. And so he commands them to undertake a test, but he does not try the wicked who would not obey. Thus, all trials in the Torah are for the good of the one being tried. This comes from Nachmanides, his commentary on the Torah, right? So think about that. All trials in the Torah are for the good of the one being tried. Sounds very familiar. Sounds like someone like Joseph, right? Joseph said the exact same thing that, I understand that y'all put me in captivity, my brothers, and y'all did me wrong, but what you thought was for evil, Yah saw it for good, right? So let's keep going. It says, from here, we learn a number of important points. First, the purpose of a nisayon, or the purpose of a trial, is not to reveal anything new to God. So the trial is not to reveal something new, but to increase the spiritual reward of the person by bringing forth his or her latent greatness into actual deeds of righteousness, right? So the trial is to help us to ascend to greater heights in him. Second, a person is only sent a nesiyon, or a trial, that he or she has the potential to pass. So once again, right, where it says that Yah will not test you above what you can handle, right? Right here, a person is only sent a trial that he or she has the potential to pass. Yah is not going to give you something that's impossible for you to go through. So whatever setback that you're going through now, or whatever tragedy or anything that you're faced with now, you have the capacity to get through it and go even higher in him, right? And it says, provided the person uses his free will properly. Third, and this is implicit in the first point, the nasiyon is intended for the good of the person, to elevate the person spiritually. Nes can also be translated as banner. The test is meant to lift a banner and reveal to the world and to the person himself the potential hidden within a human being. Powerful, powerful. So now we're going to go into some concepts that also denote Yerida Lezorek Aliyah. Let's look into some things in the oral tradition, and let's look at some verses that back up this concept. So Telahim, or Psalms 23 and 4, though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. So it didn't say if I walk through a valley. It didn't say I might walk through a valley. It says, though I walk through a valley of deepest darkness, I fear no harm. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Right? So we have to understand that while we're in the midst of darkness, or in the midst of something that feels uncomfortable, we have to understand who's with us. We have to understand that Yah's word will come to pass, and that he protects those who do his will, right? He protects those that do his will. So we have to truly understand that. We have to, like we mentioned earlier in the Torah portions, and in the Torah portion in the Torah study today, we mentioned how We have to remember the stories and the miracles and the things of old. We have to remember what the Father has done for our ancestors and what the Father has done for us. When we remember these things, we can get through and endure a trial. We can get through and endure a setback. All right. So next one. This comes from Perkei Avot. This is in the Mishnah. And this was also powerful. And it says, he used to say, do not despise any man and do not discriminate against anything, for there is no man that has not his day or time, and there is no thing that has not its place. Right? So every human being, whether we like it or not, is going to go through something. There's no human being that's too good for a setback or that's too good for a trial. We all go through it and we all have the capacity to elevate from it. The woe is me. Why am I going through this? I can't handle this. That's the enemy talking. That's not the Most High talking. If you think you can't do something or you're too weak to do something, you're allowing the evil inclination to win. Because what the scriptures are saying and what the sages and the great teachers of old are saying is that no, this is actually to make you better. And i.e., there is no one that gets to skip this process, right? No one skips this process. All right. So let's see. So let me go to the next one. So this is commentary. It says Likute Maharan, part 2, 48, 2, and 7. It says, no, too, a person must cross a very, very narrow bridge. What did we just read? The Mezarim, right? The root to that is Mezar, which means a narrow strait. So, no, too, a person must cross a very, very narrow bridge. The main rule is do not be frightened at all, right? Don't be scared. Don't be scared. We all have to cross this narrow bridge in order to go to life. If you want to go to life, you have to go through the narrow strait. You have to go from Egypt to wilderness to the promise. There's no skipping the process. You have to go through that narrow strait, right? But if you know, don't want life and you're comfortable with your life and the materialistic stuff and you're scared of what man can do to you, then go ahead and stay on the broad road. But in order to truly cross over, you have to go through the narrow strait. You have to, right? You have to go through that narrow strait. This is next one. So this is Megillah 6b. This is from the Talmud, right? And it says, Rabbi Yitzchak said in the style of a previous passage, if a person says to you, I have labored and not found success, do not believe him. Say it again. If a person says to you, I have labored and not found success, do not believe him. So once again, if you are claiming, yeah, I'm doing everything I possibly can. I don't know why I can't ascend. I don't know why I'm still being treated this way. I don't know why. I just feel like I need to give up. I can't do anymore. You're lying. And the truth ain't in you. You're allowing the enemy to win. Do not believe him. Similarly, if he says to you, I have not labored, but nevertheless I found success, do not believe him either. So, you know, we talk about this all the time. We got people that have illustrious lives that are seemingly living comfortable lives and complacent and never really going through any trial or any like real test, and just being able to mosey on through life. And seemingly they have a lot, abundant success. Don't believe them. That's not success. That's the Most High allowing them to go on into their own devices. So if somebody's not laboring and they're not putting in any work for the Most High, they're not doing anything for the kingdom, but it seems that they're prospering, that ain't about nothing. Don't believe that either. If, however, he says to you, I have labored and I have found success, believe him. believe him. So that's self-explanatory. Self-explanatory. So in order to have success, we have to labor. There's going to be some. There's going to be some topsy-turvy stuff going on. But in order to get to the end, we have to endure this race. Right? We have to endure this race. All right. So let's keep going. All right. So now I'm gonna read this. This is Isaiah 3:1 through 6. All right. Isaiah 3:1 through 6. And this is the Net Bible version. All right. And so this also talks. This is also very true on the same concept of descending in order to ascend. Right. So it says, "Look, the sovereign Lord who commands armies is about to remove from Jerusalem and Judah every source of security, including all the food and water." All right. So we see here that you know at this point the Israelites are you know about to suffer catastrophe, captivity. The Most High is removing His hand from them because of disobedience. And right here is a description of all the setbacks and all the little topsy turvy things that they're going to have to deal with. But there's a good thing. There's like at the end of this tunnel. Let's keep reading. The mighty men and warriors, judges and prophets, omen readers and leaders, captains of groups of 50, the respected citizens, advisors and those skilled in magical arts, and those who know incantations. The Lord says, I will make youths their officials, malicious young men will rule over them. The people will treat each other harshly. Men will oppose each other. Neighbors will fight. Youths will proudly defy the elderly, and riffraff will challenge those who were once respected. So it says, indeed, a man will grab his brother right in his father's house and say, you own a coat, you be our leader. All right. So we see so far that this passage is talking about all of the bad things or all of the pitfalls that is going to happen to our people, right? That's going to happen. But there's like at the end of the tunnel, let's read the rest of it. It says, this heap of ruins will be under your control. So verse 6 is very powerful. It's going through all the proverbial hell that the Israelites are going to go through. And verse 6 says at the very end, but the heap of ruins will be under your control. So let's read what the oral tradition has to say about that verse. So Gittin 43a:15, it says, the verse states, and let the stumbling block be under your hand. Isaiah 3:6. And it says, let me see, stuff in the way. So sorry. Let this stumbling block be under your hand. A person does not understand statements of Torah unless he stumbles in them. So, in order to truly grasp Torah, in order to ascend in your understanding, you have to go through setbacks in life. It's necessary for your growth. It's necessary for you to elevate to go to a higher standing with Most High. It's necessary for you to get close to God. It's necessary for you to actually learn Torah even more. A person does not understand statements of Torah unless he stumbles in them. Nobody on this earth has been born knowing everything. When you're born, you have to learn from when you're a little bitty baby to when you're old and gray. You have to continuously learn about the ways of the Most High. And stumbling, falling, tripping, sometimes messing up, even kata, even when we sin. Sometimes these things are necessary to get us to wake back up. Not saying that we are supposed to sin. That's not what I'm saying. But the point is, a lot of times we are going to miss the mark in certain areas. But whenever we go through the stumbling, go through the falling, there is a way back up. And through your experience, you should have gained some insight to help you grow even higher, go even further in God. Right? So this is a very important concept. Very important concept. So let's keep going. And we all know this verse, Proverbs 24:16. 7 times the righteous man falls and gets up, while the wicked are tripped by one misfortune. right? So setbacks, if you look at it in a positive light, setbacks help you get up and move forward. Whereas if you are a pessimist and every setback is is just so detrimental to where you want to seize up and die, that's when a setback is bad because you allow that experience, right, to dictate how you operate. You allow that experience to make you stumble to where you don't want to get up no more. You know, I just want to quit and give up, right? But you have to realize that your experiences in life are for you to elevate. I know that sound. I know. Sometimes we may go through some harsh things. We may have gone through abuse. We may have gone through some unspeakable things. But everything that we go through in life, there is a way out, and there is a way to ascend higher in God. There is. There just is. Right? All right. So now we're going to go to Ezra, chapter 4. I'm going to read verses 1 through 24. All right. So we're almost done. So let me present my screen again. Let me share my screen. We're gonna read through this together. All right, all right. All right, here we go. So let me click the screen. We're gonna read through this Ezra. All right. So let's look at an example of this concept of going through setbacks and being able to persevere through. Okay. So this is Ezra, the fourth chapter. All right. And some context before we start reading, some context is that the beginning of Ezra starts off with the Most High is ready to fulfill his word, which was spoken through Jeremiah. Right. So, he's getting ready to bring his word to pass. And Yah told Jeremiah about the exile to Babylon and about their eventual redemption. So then we see Yah stir up King Cyrus, the Persian king's mind to allow the Israelites to return to their homeland and rebuild the temple. So this is where we're at right here. This chapter 4 is where now the children of Israel are being allowed to rebuild the temple. So let's start from the beginning, right? Shall we? So verse 1. It says, when the enemies of Judah and Benjamin learned that the former exiles were building a temple for the Lord God of Israel, they came to Zerubbabel, and the leaders said to them, let us help you build, for like you, we seek your God, and we have been sacrificing to him for the time of King Ashardan of Assyria, who brought us here. So let's look at verse 1. When the enemies of Judah and Benjamin learned that the former exiles were building a temple for the Lord God of Israel. So what's striking in that first verse is that the enemies are catching wind on what Judah and Benjamin, right, are doing as far as building this temple. And so one thing we have to understand in this spiritual battle, right, is that our enemy, right, will oppose our attempts at spiritual advancements. Our enemy will oppose our attempts at spiritual advancements. Once again, Psalms 11 says that the enemy shoots darts or shoots his arrow at the righteous. So once again, when you get tested or when you get tried or when people are trying to come against you or when things are happening and you're getting attacked from left, right, up, down, all around, right? That's just the enemy trying to get you off track from spiritual advancement. So when you feel attacked, you kind of feel disheartened, you feel yourself trying to kind of giving up hope, I want you to understand that you're on the right track. The enemy is trying to get you to stop from spiritually advancing. Okay, let's keep going. So, verse 3. But Zerubbabel, Jeshua, and the rest of the leaders of Israel said to them, you have no right to help us build the temple of our God. We will build it by ourselves for the Lord God of Israel, just as King Cyrus, the king of Persia, has commanded us. Then the local people began to discourage the people of Judah and to dishearten them from building. They were hiring advisors to oppose them so as to frustrate their plans throughout the time of King Cyrus of Persia until the reign of King Darius of Persia. So we look at verses 2 through 5, right? So after the enemies caught wind of this plan, the enemies started to come to him like, hey man, we want to help. Let's take part in what's going on. And so we have to understand that the enemy also loves to use compromise under the disguise of cooperation. The enemy loves to use compromise under the disguise of cooperation and will also use fear and discouragement to keep you from doing what you need to do. Right? So once again, people that walk in Torah, you're usually going to be the only person at your workplace walking this way. You're usually one of the few people in your family walking this way. And you're going to get times when people are going to ask you to compromise and, hey man, let me be a part of this and this, and let me add my little flake to it. Let me add my little flair to it. and want to cooperate and want to cooperate in order to compromise in order for you to eventually leave what it is you actually believe in. But once again, do not fall under the trap of the enemy or the evil inclination or yourself. Stay faithful to the word of the Most High. And verse 5 is also telling, where it says hiring they were hiring advisors to oppose them so as to frustrate their plans throughout the time of King Cyrus of Persia until the reign of King Darius of Persia. Right. So right here we see that the enemy also likes to use false accusations and misinformation to undermine you. Right. I'm sure we've been through this where people have lied on your name, thrown dirt on your name because they don't understand what you're walking in. So since I don't understand what you're walking in, since I'm fearful of being told the truth, since I'm uneasy with your light, I'm going to make up rumors about you or make up things about you to make you seem evil. Once again, do not succumb to the ways of the enemy. These are all things that happen to people that are doing God's will. You're going to go through all kinds of setbacks like this. So when you're going through stuff, just read these scriptures. All stuff we going through, this stuff ain't new. This stuff just true. It's just true. Let's keep going. So now verse 6. At the beginning of the reign of Ahasuerus, they filed an accusation against the inhabitants of Judah and Jerusalem. And during the reign of Artaxerxes, Bishlam, Mithridath, Tabil, and the rest of their colleagues wrote to King Artaxerxes of Persia. This letter was first written in Aramaic, but then translated. So let's see. I'll skip down a little bit. All right, I'll start right here. So I'll start right here in verse 11. This is a copy of a letter they sent unto him to King Artaxerxes from your servants in Trans-Euphrates. Now let the king be aware that the Jews who came up to us from you have gone to Jerusalem. They are rebuilding that rebellious and arduous city. They are completing its walls and repairing its foundations. Let the king also be aware that if this city is built and its walls are completed, no more tax, custom, or toll will be paid, and the royal treasury will suffer loss. In light of the fact that we are loyal to the king, and since it does not seem appropriate to us that the king should sustain damage, we are sending the king this information so that he may initiate a search of the records of his predecessors and discover in those records that this city is rebellious and injurious to both kings and provinces, producing internal revolts from long ago. It is for this very reason that the city was destroyed, where we therefore are informing the king that if this city is rebuilt and its walls are completed, you will not retain control of this portion of Trans-Euphrates. And so the king's response, right? And the king's response, he tells them, okay, we'll just scrap it. We're gonna scratch it. They don't let them rebuild. Tell them to shut it down, right? Um, and so when we look at that, right, we see that the Most High is using Judah and Benjamin, right, to help rebuild the temple. And this is Yah's word come to pass. Yah said that this would happen, but we see a halt in the plan because there's a setback. Because in the middle of them getting ready to build this temple, or when they're starting this construction on this temple, we see the powers that be stop them. So I know when we're reading this, I'm sure when they went through this, they probably had the thought of, man, well, is what God is that what really God told us to do? Am I supposed to be doing this? Am I in God's will? Why is the enemy able to stop the plan? But you got to remember, a setback is only necessary for an eventual come up. So let's read verse 24. It says, so the work on the temple of God in Jerusalem came to a halt. It remained halted until the second year of the reign of King Darius of Persia. So there we go. So it halted. There was a setback, but then eventually they were able to finish what they started. So you have to understand that, and this story is a prevalent, indicator that you know setbacks are necessary for spiritual advancement. Maybe they needed that setback. Maybe they needed to halt for that little time because maybe they weren't necessarily all the way ready yet. In that setback caused them to spiritually advance to where now you're ready to finish the product, finish the building, right? So I just thought that was good. I thought that was good. So we have to stay faithful through setbacks. So in order to stay faithful through setbacks, you have to one, know your enemy, resist the enemy, right? And submit to Yah. You have to know your enemy, resist the enemy, and submit to Yah. And the only way to know the enemy, resist the enemy, and submit to Yah is to stay faithful to the word. Keep reading the word, grow in the word, spend time with Yah, and spend less time in the world. That way you can know the enemy, resist the enemy, and submit to Yah. All right. So there's a few verses that I'm gonna stop sharing. So there's a few verses that I want to read that I thought were also prevalent for this topic. So let's go to Hebrews 6. Let's go to Hebrews 6. And I'm going to start in verse 10. So this is very important. We have to keep these scriptures in our mind. Keep these words near and dear to our heart. So Hebrews 6. Sorry, here we go. So Hebrews 6 and 10. I'm going to go through 10 through 12. So it says, for God is not unjust so as to forget your work and the love you have demonstrated for his name. For God is not unjust so as to forget your work and the love you have demonstrated for his name, in having served and continuing to serve the saints. So God is not going to forget your labor, your toil, the times where you had to persevere through setback. God not forgetting none of that. But we passionately want each of you to demonstrate the same eagerness for the fulfillment of your hope until the end, so that you may not be sluggish, but imitators of those who through faith and perseverance inherited the promises. Once again, you have to persevere in order to inherit promises. But if you're sluggish, you're going to fall short of the mark. When you give up, when you're going through some tough things, you're going to fall short of the mark. When you allow the setback to make you lean towards your evil inclination, you've allowed the enemy to win. So you have to demonstrate the same eagerness to have hope fulfilled. Once you give up hope, you will become complacent. Once you give up in the midst of setback, you will become docile. This is what I call the Esau effect. What made Esau so unworthy of the promise? What made Esau so unworthy to be called a friend of God was that he allowed circumstances to dictate how he felt about Yah. He went through a setback. He's hungry. He's, going through hunger and thirst. You know what? Since I'm so hungry, scratch this birthright, give me that porridge, and get the heck out my way. That's a person that allows a situation to dictate how they feel about Yah. You should not allow a situation or a moment or a trial or a tragedy to dictate your worship level of the Creator. A true believer in Yah should not be built off of circumstances. It boils down to, do you believe what he says? And do you believe his word will come to pass? If so, you can endure any trial. So I have one more verse. Let's go to James 1, 2 through 8. So James 1, verses 2 through 8. And it says, my brothers and sisters, consider it nothing but joy when you fall into all sorts of trials, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. Let me say this again. My brothers and sisters, consider it nothing but joy. Wow, I'm supposed to be joyous when I'm going through trial? Yes, because this proves that God is on your side and he's trying to tug you to elevate you. He wants you to go harder for him, go deeper in him. He wants to transfigure you into a spiritual being. Well, in order to do that, we have to get beside ourselves and allow him to do his job, do the work, right? Allow him to do, allow Yah to be Yah, because you know that the testing of your faith produces endurance. So when we go through these things, it's producing endurance. It's helping us to make it towards the end, right? And let endurance have its perfect effect so that you will be perfect and complete, not deficient in anything, right? But if anyone is deficient in wisdom, he should ask God, who gives to all generously and without reprimand, and it will be given to him. But he must ask in faith without doubting, for the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed around by the wind. For that person must not suppose that he will receive anything from Yah. So when you can never see the good in your setback, and you are on this roller coaster where you ascend, descend, ascend, descend, you ascend and descend in the same spot, you never go any higher because you would never allow your setback to actually teach you to go higher, then what can Yah do for you? You keep allowing your setbacks to dictate how you feel. So therefore, you're never learning the actual lesson that you need to be learning. Since he is a double-minded individual, unstable in all his ways. And that goes for this last slide. So let's look at these two graphs. We have a sine wave graph, then we have another graph that's ascending. What most human beings do is this sine graph. So on this graph, we ascend, descend, and ascend in the same spot. So what most human beings do is that in a sine wave graph, we just ascend and descend in the same spot, never actually elevating, but we go through life ascending and descending in the same spot because we never allow our setbacks to teach us lessons to help us understand Torah better. So since we never allow setbacks to be a teacher to us, we just ascend and descend in the same spot, never actually moving. But what we need to be looking like is this graph on the right. When we descend, we should elevate. When we descend again, we should elevate higher. We descend again, we should elevate even higher. We descend again, we should elevate even higher. We should constantly be elevating every time a setback comes, because the setback is teaching us more about what Torah is about. It's teaching us about the love of God. It's teaching us about his mercy. It's teaching us about his compassion. It's teaching us about how we are to interact with other people and interact with him. It's teaching us how to have a perspective on life. It's teaching us, right, how to be tamim. Setbacks are a teacher, right? So this is what I have for today. Staying faithful through setbacks. I hope that this was a fruitful message for you guys. Um, thank you all for listening in and tuning in, and may you continue to be blessed and just have a good rest of your day. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the RTB channel. Like, share, um, post the content, and spread the word. So thank y'all and shalom.